I got inspired by a 4-hour Audible book, Alcohol Lied to Me, and me and my buddies had always taken a month off, dry January, and kind of addressed it in our own way. But come Super Bowl Sunday, we're right back at it. And the I'm taking a 1 year, not a 1 month. Is a big deal. It's a big paradigm shift. You're kind of forced to burn your ships, and you kind of have to you can't mope around and watch the clock. You have to kind of get after it. I see a lot of guys, generally speaking, when they're taking a break, they're playing defense. They're taking short breaks. They know it's not going to benefit them. They know it's not going to be any fun. When you do a 3 or 6 month break, what's interesting is
Well, Clifford, I'm really excited to have you here today. It's a fun topic. You're the founder of Booze Vacation, and it's a unique concept, cutting alcohol out of our lives, even if for temporary timelines or purposes, to have this hard reset. And I'm excited to talk and just kind of understand what drove you to create this concept and to help so many people with something that most people maybe don't even know they're struggling with.
yeah, in short, scratching my own itch. And yeah, I don't like the term cutting. It sounds kind of, negative. We
Harsh.
we use the term taking an extended vacation from drinking. So that's our little play on words. But yeah, just scratching my own itch. I started drinking in high school, played a bunch of sports, Gen X, work hard, play hard, playing water polo, soccer, tennis, working out a lot, going crazy with the boys, having fun. And yeah, before apps and all that other stuff, we had to, actually talk to women, not look at them on phones. And so, yeah, use a little liquid courage. Got a degree in nutritional science, got Cal Poly, and so it was always very health and fitness oriented. Then I had my own consulting business for 20 years in Silicon Valley, and so I was in corporate America. And guess what? There's alcohol there too. So kind of wherever I went, and so not a problem drinker, but yeah, definitely not looking and feeling my best and performing my best, especially as I got into my early 40s. I had got diagnosed with sleep apnea, which was a total sucker punch. I felt pretty bad about that, and yeah, just wasn't feeling my best. But at the same time, it's kind of what everybody. It's a similar playbook that a lot of my buddies were using, and I think over time, yeah, your baseline, percentage of efficiency kind of just whittles down and you don't really notice it. But I wasn't looking for a solution. I wasn't looking to, I was drinking less, but I got inspired by a 4-hour Audible book, Alcohol Lied to Me. And the guy was really entertaining. He was talking some shit. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do a real break. Me and my buddies had always taken a month off, dry January, and, kind of addressed it in our own way. But come Super Bowl Sunday, we're right back at it. And so it wasn't really much of a solution. And so decided to take this 1 year break. And it turns out a lot of the things that I was doing actually were great. It was just kind of out of sequence, and I needed a longer runway. So that's a quick backstory on that.
What made you pick up the book, Alcohol Lied to Me?
I like I said, I had a consulting business. I had plenty of time and money and resources to kind of dink and dunk into transcendental meditation, a bunch of different weightlifting and diet protocols, and so I was just kind of trying to optimize for life, and wasn't looking for a solution around that. But I had done a lot of different lifestyle experiments, and a buddy, yeah, just happened to mention it, and yeah, like I said, I was honestly kind of at an inflection point where I tried just about everything and was still kind of getting pretty crappy results. And I was kind of concerned where things were headed. And so when he mentioned it, I'm like, I got an Audible account. So I checked it out and it was really eye opening and yeah, just not something intuitive. Guys don't talk about alcohol use in a real way that, now there's the Andrew Huberman podcast on alcohol where he kind of just blew it out of the water in about, if you listen to the first 20 minutes, you're just like, oh, I can't listen to it anymore. But before that, like generally speaking, the typical dude that's a man of success that is, socially active and, has been drinking since high school or college, like that's going to typically perpetuate. It's pretty predictive. And guys aren't necessarily looking to get smarter with their drinking, but they are looking to get healthier and perform better and ditch the meds and the CPAP machines and things like that. And so, yeah, it's kind of a tricky topic and one that I struggled with in a way, in like I said, kind of looking for a performance hack that I didn't realize it was kind of coming from a different angle than what I expected.
I think that when I started wearing the Whoop in 2019. It was probably one of the most eye-opening things that I had done because I've worn it consecutively for many years now, and you can tell really quickly what alcohol does to your body and how it impacts your sleep, how it impacts your sleep cycle, restful sleep versus non-restful sleep. I mean, just watching the stress while you sleep coming off of having a couple of drinks versus having nothing on a night is like, no pun intended, night and day. And I think that alone was a checking point for me just to be like, okay, well, if this is impacting me that much, maybe I should make sure I'm paying close attention to what I'm putting in the body. And so, like, even the timeline of when you have a drink, if it's less than 3 hours before you go to bed, it's so much more impactful. And I think the awareness, were you wearing a wearable or anything that was kind of helping you track it? No Aura ring, no Whoop, anything, just more
Yeah, it
paying
was a
attention?
little kind of predated that, but that's a funny point, and we kind of talk about that in our conversations and in our social media. But yeah, the reality is, like, if any guy checked out his stats, he'd be pretty friggin' horrified. You know what it does to like pretty much every metric that matters when it comes to your resting heart rate, your heart rate variability, your body temp, your respiratory rate. Everything just goes the wrong direction. Kind of similar with your hormones and with your brain chemistry, and so yeah, had I known, yeah, like I said, I was a little slow on the uptake, and I think in general, guys aren't, guys kinda are playing dumb with their alcohol use, right? They're not, like, tracking how many drinks they have at a tailgating party or at an event. It's kinda like they're having a couple drinks per hour, and sometimes those events last 4 or 5 hours, and so you wind up drinking more than you want, and then as you're kinda playing dumb with your alcohol use, it kind of forces you to play dumb with your health. You kind of ignoring some of the warning signs. I got buddies that have, the Garmins and all this fancy tech, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, I don't wear that piece of crap anymore because I'm getting these," said I was at like 35%. And I'm like, "Yeah, man, that's what's happening." But like they're like, guys, they want to, kind of blue sky it. But yeah, and again, it depends on where guys are at. But ultimately, we're not trying to point fingers or push sobriety on anybody. It's a kind of a lifestyle experiment, especially men of success. I think it's important that if you make it to the mountaintop, you want to stay there and enjoy it as long as possible. And unfortunately, what I see, myself included, is the more success you have, the more reasons you have to celebrate, the more vacations, the more sales dinners, and you can wind up getting sucked into really accelerating age and disease 10, 15 years sooner than you thought. And then all of a sudden, all the stuff that was so important becomes a lot less important because you're, pissing up wind with your doctor and pharmacist and checkbook.
Yeah, it's super interesting because the older you get and the more successful you are, the more you end up at these dinners, the more you end up, traveling a bunch and having um that 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 pressure to some extent, and sometimes it's just because it makes it more fun. I mean, having a drink at the table, having a cocktail before you sit down at the dinner with people you don't know, it's no different than when you were talking about being a young man and having to go having the liquid courage to talk to girls. I had friends in college that if they didn't have alcohol in their system, they couldn't talk to girls in any capacity. And I think Gen X, when you start looking at the Gen X to millennial timeline, especially through the 90s, it was very, very normalized to have drinking in high school and into college, and that was the college life. And so kids get out and they've kind of established these habits that they only build upon, not actually break. And the more successful someone gets, the more access they have to do just a higher quality of drinking versus the lower quality they were probably doing in the high school and college days.
Yeah, and it's tricky too because again, I'm not like we're not demonizing alcohol, and
Sure.
honestly, it made us who we are, and I think a lot of men of success can trace back to, that conversation they had over, wine or cigars with a certain mentor or something that's really helped them, and it's part of our success. And I think that's kind of what's tricky about it is we still want to be that same guy. We still feel like that same guy in high school or college. We still want to have that fun wild side. But what I've found, and I hate to say this, like adulting, because I never wanted to grow up. I'm 53 now, but yeah, you have to update the operating system when you get to levels of success. Regular alcohol use in that playbook where you're identifying it with like an operating system for fun, friends, events, and a reward system, that needs to be updated because if not, it's very predictive. Tolerance, you're going to need more. It's going to be harder on your aging body, and you're going to find yourself continually in lowered and lowered states and kicking the crap out of yourself a lot faster. And so the reset is pretty important because if you don't ever stop, if you're always just kind of at that social level of 5 to 10 drinks a week or whatever, which could be 12, 15 servings, then you're just getting lower and lower and you're just really accelerating the age and disease piece. And things get a lot harder and a lot less fun. And then ultimately, yeah, the crap can hit the fan in your 40s and 50s, and then it's like a whole other game that's not very fun. So it's really about kind of taking your health seriously before your doctor and pharmacist start doing it for you. And then you're playing defense and not having a lot of fun.
Yeah, so if I'm listening to this and I'm like, dude, I'm not giving up alcohol. Like it's just not something that I know people will listen and just say this immediately. What walk us through
Sounds
that
like my best
year.
friend.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well,
Since 5.
walk us through your year. So you did this for a year. That was the first challenge. You said, forget dry January. We're gonna go straight for 1 year. Walk us through that and what are some of the changes? What are some of the things specifically that you noticed besides the obvious things that got better? Did it heal the sleep apnea? Were you able like how did you find that change?
Yeah, it's a long story. It was 8 years ago, but yeah, for starters, the I'm taking a 1 year, not a 1 month, is a big deal. It's a big paradigm shift. You're kind of forced to burn your ships and you kind of have to like, you can't mope around and watch the clock. You have to kind of get after it. And I think that in and of itself is critical, right? It's like I see a lot of guys, generally speaking, when they're taking a break, they're playing defense. They're taking a short breaks. They know it's not going to benefit them. They know it's not going to be any fun. They do it in January when there's nothing going on. And guess what? They didn't have any fun. They proved they could do it and they learned a lot of bad lessons. And so by taking these longer breaks, you're kind of burning your ships and you have such a longer runway to do it. And yeah, you can't like hide behind your social calendar and be like, okay, this is the year I don't have anything going on, so I could do the year. It's like that's never gonna happen. And so yeah, it's about kind of sacking up and relearning how to do without it. Yeah, is it awkward at first? Absolutely. But like so is anything that you haven't done in a while. And ultimately it's really about, self-advocation and mopping up these pre-disease symptoms that are super common as we get into our 30s and 40s, belly fat, bad sleep, bad stomachs, all this stuff. But yeah, it was definitely, it was a trip. And I think, yeah, I did notice that everything got better. I did fix my sleep apnea. I use a piece of tape now. I have an Aura ring. I track all that. And so that in and of itself, I know about 2 or 3 guys that have actually cured their sleep apnea. I was diagnosed with it twice. I had CPAP machines. They didn't work. We can get into that, but in short, alcohol will totally it'll stress your autonomic nervous system, it'll increase your respiratory rate, it'll put on extra weight. And so, yeah, you're over breathing, and so your body isn't naturally gonna occlude. So I'm going down a rat hole, but that's the so there is techniques you could absolutely do it. You could absolutely fix that, which is a huge deal because if you're not sleeping well, like you're kind of screwed. Like that's the cornerstone of your health. That's gonna, like, clean up your brain and the toxins, that's gonna reset and optimize your hormones and what makes you look and feel your best. So, without good quality sleep, you're just aging fast and sucking wind and massively increasing inflammation and taxing your cardiovascular system. It's just it's really bad stuff. And that's something you just can't do with regular alcohol use, and that was, again, what kinda motivated me was the sleep apnea. But yeah, everything kinda just gets easier and better. I think a lot of people have said it better than I. John Mayer had a good one where he was kinda just saying, like, your line kinda goes down and then it kinda goes up more subtly, but again, what's going on with regular alcohol use works really well when you're drinking it because it's lowering your states when you're not drinking it. And so you're getting a chemical boost when you do drink it. So during the work week, when you're dragging your ass, unproductive, kind of looking forward to the weekend, you're in these lowered states because alcohol's rewired your brain. This is more stuff that we learned from Huberman, but I learned anecdotally these short breaks and cutting back doesn't rewire your brain neural circuitry back to factory settings. So what you're going to get is a baseline of higher stress, higher anxiety, a lowered mood, and lack of discipline and impulse control. And this could be 3 to 6 months for a guy that's, you know, 10, 15 drinks. And so, yeah, you're going to be in a bunch of negative states that it takes a little while for that neural circuitry to kind of rewire. And so that's why it's important to play the long game. You have to learn how to have fun at parties and relax without it. But yeah, the sleep, everything just got easier and better. Things definitely leveled out. There's definitely a yin and yang to things. And again, it's nice to have consistency and to know what's going on. But I knew the work week was going to kind of suck and the weekend was going to be pretty fun, you know? And, but the rub is, again, over time, it's not a consistent form of fun, right? Like it's going to get a little bit less and less. And sometimes you didn't eat and you got a headache or whatever, or the event wasn't as good. And so there's trade offs. But ultimately, I encourage guys to get back from that 60% to 100%, so they're asking the right questions to the right guy, and I think most of them will be like, "Oh, yeah, no, this is cool." And it's not about not drinking ever again, but it's about getting good at it, restoring your health intentionally, not just not drinking is just not gonna magically fix everything, right? Like, a lot of these systems are kinda complex, your metabolic health, your sleep, your hormonal health, your diet choices. So yeah, it takes a little while to re-regulate, and so that's why we've kind of just dialed all that in just because 'cause that's what I've been geeking down on for the last, 5 to 10 years with myself and a bunch of friends and clients. So, it's really about a kind of a land grab and getting after it and fixing up all these kind of common metabolic dysfunction stuff that most guys have, bad blood work, high blood pressure, and yeah, packing on some muscle, increasing the activity level. But yeah, it's a trade-off, right? It's not a perfect crime, but yeah, and again, it's not sobriety necessarily. It doesn't have to be because we're not targeting alcoholics. So it's not like there's not other tools in your tool belt if you want to bust them out. So there's flexibility with edibles and nicotine and stuff like that. It's not changing one vice for the other. I'm just saying there is, opportunities, but the social prevalence of alcohol is the trickiest, and it is the most entwined in your nostalgia and in your neural chemistry and your habits and how you roll and how all your buddies do as well. So that's a big sticky widget that guys need to figure out, or pretty predictive bad things are going to happen a lot faster than they should.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like it's like when you go on vacation, most people when you're used to going on vacation or you take a trip, like it's immediate that it's people go to the airport and they get a drink at the airport and then they start. One of my buddies we call he says when vacation Jason comes on, he knows that it's vacation and there's a flip of a switch and so it does take a reprogramming. The most I've ever gone completely was I do it. I've done it for Lent a couple of times as a Catholic. I've gone 40 days and done the 40 plus days during Lent, and that was and to some extent, I think you're exactly right. Like it's actually more painful because you're recognizing all the things you're not doing. So, like going to a nice Italian dinner and not having a glass of wine, and my wife and I sat there, we did it together, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, I want a Montepulciano so bad right now with this rigatoni. It's mandatory." And there's just the brain is just so programmed for these types of things.
Or I'm
Uh,
cooking and I'm slicing some garlic and sauteing some stuff. I need a little wine, to test it as I'm going. Like, yeah, it's so like it gets so hardwired in the neural circuitry, and the habits.
have you gone back in 8 years, or did you just kick it out completely for you and your objectives?
Yeah, so I took a 1 year vacation, and then I went, like I said, I was kind of experimenting. I wasn't like looking. And again, it's not about telling what a guy should do long term.
Right.
It's really just kind of the reset. But I did 1 year and then I went back to having a drink, 1 or 2 drinks on a Friday or Saturday night, just to kind of like to see. And I was kind of just, kind of taking everything in. And then there was a couple nights where I had like 3 drinks and I'm like, okay, I don't really like where that's headed. And so I would take another 3 month or 6 month break, depending upon what was going on. Like I had a 50th birthday, and I was going to surf like 10-foot waves in Nicaragua. So I took a 6-month break ahead of that. So whenever you can kind of pull it out whenever you want to like look and feel your best, or you have a wedding or you have a big milestone coming up, so that it's a tool you can use. And then they're easier the second and third times around. And so, it's a way of saying like it's not necessarily like you see the light but there's probably about 20-25% of my buddies or and guys that have done it do see the light a little faster, and they'll keep rocking their vacation, but it's not really about it's a choose your own adventure. But what ultimately what you're going to find is the more you take them, the longer you take them, the less you're going to drink long term. And so at this point, yeah, and the other piece is like where are you at, and like what are you going to gain out of it, and what's your drinking history. So the typical dude that's been drinking since high school or college that has had a bunch of binges and stuff like that, their tolerance is pretty high. You get into your late 40s, into your 50s, there's not a lot of you're an investment guy. There's not a lot of ROI on the other side of 50, right? Like you have like, your body is like half as efficient, not as half as efficient, but it's a lot less efficient at detoxifying, at sleeping well. Sleeping is non-negotiable on this side of 50. Alcohol will totally trash it, even on the nights you don't sleep, even on the nights you're not drinking. And so you absolutely can, but it's like you're not going to get a lot out of it. But like I said, I don't think it's something that we should like, necessarily never do it, do and like you have a glass of wine here or there, but you just drink differently and for different reasons and a lot less. But to your point, I'm not opposed to it, but I drink NA beers. They're really good. I'm not looking to get like I don't need a chemical scratch from a lot of people get turned off by NA beers because like there's no alcohol in it, and like kind of 30 to 40% of the enjoyment is that little chemical boost you get. And so if you don't need that, if you're not scratchy, you don't have the itch. And so you can still, there's still muscle memory there, right? So you're still at a party, you still drinking a beer that tastes good. You could have a couple of them. And so, yeah, I'm not opposed to not having one, but yeah, I drink less and less. And again, when I do, like, am I going to drink it late at night? Late at night? No, probably not. Am I going to like have a double IPA that has a bunch of alcohol versus a session IPA that has like half the alcohol?
Right.
Probably choose that. So, um, yeah, just kind of figured it out. And so I've kind of coined the term getting smarter with your alcohol use, which kind of sounds like an oxymoron, but ultimately when you do a 3 or 6 month break, what's interesting is, like I said, alcohol works really well when you're regularly drinking it, and because you're constantly in these lowered states, and so you get this chemical boost, you get set and set in because it's the weekend and the game's on and you're with your buddies. But, you know, when you haven't been drinking it for 6 months, your baseline level gets higher. And so what happens when you have that first carcinogenic depressant, like you get kind of a little low, and it doesn't help you. It kind of like diminishes your state. And so you have to like keep chipping away at that. And yeah, you can turn that machinery back on, but yeah, it's going to take a couple weeks. So keeping at it and like not getting the returns until you start lowering your state, then it's the only time you're going to get the boost. So there's a yin and yang to it, and that in and of itself is just an interesting kind of experience to have because again, it kind of rewires some of the old patterns, or at least kind of makes you think a little bit smarter about it. So those are
So
some of a lot of profound experiences you get when you check this out.
do you find that most of the guys and most of your friends that have gone on this journey replace it with something else? So are they utilizing edibles? Are they drinking some of these? I've seen a lot of new drinks that are coming out where it's maybe some mushroom based. It's got CBD. Is that something? Is it or is it is it kind of defeating the purpose? Because I feel like in some ways people are replacing doing a non-alcoholic beer is more for the mission of just like holding the beer, feeling like you have something bubbly in your hand. I mean, mine is a sparkling water. If I'm going to go to an event and I'm not going to drink anything, I'll get a sparkling water in like an alcohol glass and I'll have some limes thrown in it. And you don't know if I'm drinking or not drinking. It could be vodka or gin or whatever, and I can navigate it. And I can drink as much of that as I want and still feel great in the morning. So, but I mean, do you find that people are replacing it in some capacity, or is it just really no one answer, obviously, for everybody?
Yeah, and yeah, I think, and to your point, like I said, I the NA for a regular beer, I don't even call that replacement. I just call that socializing and
Right,
and
right.
and drinking something you enjoy. But yeah, it depends on the guy, right? Like, I have a lot of triathletes, I might say, in the water polo world where they're like, there's weed, there's nicotine, there's alcohol. And so are they necessarily gonna pull all those out of their tool belt all at once? Like, and should they? No, they shouldn't. They shouldn't make it that hard. So it really depends on the guy and it depends on the age as well. But like I said, I think a low dose edible here or there could be a good tool to have in your tool belt. Not to switch one vice for the other, but and again, is it good on your brain? No, but again, it's not as it might not be as habitual just because it's not as socially acceptable. So, kind of depends on the dude. But no, I think a lot of guys actually, I think they do have these epiphanies when they're getting smarter with their drinking. It, yeah, they get smarter with the other vices as well.
It's a higher frequency. I think it's to some extent, it's like you wearing the Aura Ring or me wearing the Whoop. The more you pay attention to it, the more accountability you're applying to yourself. And I know that if there's a red recovery day because I ate late, I mean, eating late is like the worst thing that I do for my body. And if I eat late and have alcohol, that has just amplified the negativity on the sleep. And so now there's a full recovery day, and paying attention to that is something that sometimes you wake up and you feel fine, but but your Whoop or your Aura is telling you that you're not fine, and that your HRV is beat up and your body is recovering and you're not feeling great. And so when you put all that together, I think that these accountability resources will make people make changes in themselves. And then how far you go is really the key. What you're doing is a hard reboot. If you say let's do it a year, then it's a hard reset. It's like turning off your phone, getting everything off of it, and then turning it back on and giving it a chance to kind of reboot all the way through, so that it's not you'll notice the phone starts to slow down. At least they used to. It's not as bad as it used to be. The new ones are pretty clean, but every once in a while I gotta turn the thing off and then bring it right back on.
Yeah, and again, I don't wanna scare away any customers with, "You have to take a year," but definitely the 3-month, and that kinda backs into, like, how the hell would you even start doing planning on doing that? And to your point, it's not about like, "Okay, yeah, I guess I wanna do a 3-month break or a 6-month break." It's not even that, it's like, figure out where you're currently at, and this is about your health and performance, and again, if you're in your 40s plus, like, you're gonna have some suboptimal stuff going on, not the end of the world, but what's gonna happen with your suboptimal sleep? It's gonna pull down your diet and your fitness and your hormones and your sexual health, and so there's cascading effects. So we like to start the journey with like, kind of packing your bags in air quotes and figuring out where you're at, what you want, and what your history is, what your symptoms are showing up. We have a 3-minute men's health assessment where you can look at really basic things like your weight, how long you've been drinking, how many prescriptions are in your cabinet, how's your sleep, how's your fitness, self-rated, how's your mood. And you could really tell a lot. You look at your age and you know you can really tell like kind of where things are going because ultimately 90 plus percent of Americans have poor metabolic health. Alcohol's, if you're drinking 5, 10 drinks a week and you're in your late 40s, you're just going to accelerate those, pre-disease symptoms maybe about 5 to 10 years earlier. So it's really easy to figure out where you're going. And then ultimately you got to ask the question, what do I want and how long do I want to keep it? And it's like, if you want a lot and if you got a lot, like you should probably enjoy it. And that's the other thing. It's not just about like how long you're going to live, but it's a quality of life today because regular alcohol use really does tax your productivity, your sexual health, your energy, your mood, just your flow. And so it's really, it's kind of a self-advocation. It could be a little counterculture. You might feel a little dirty about, not, your buddies or your business or how you're going to do this or that. But ultimately, it's getting more and more, people are getting more and more aware. And it's really just about advocating for yourself so you're showing up as your best self and enjoying life. And guess what? You're going to figure it out. You're going to get a lot of gains. And if you're intentional about dialing in your sleep, diet, and fitness, which is 10 times easier and more intuitive when you're not drinking, and guess what? You're just going to make massive gains across the board, and your life's going to look a lot more like the beer commercial than the guy that's drinking five on his couch, on the over the weekend. So
It's like those lifestyle choices are stacking, like they really do stack in positivity. So for example, the minute you start eating healthier, you start paying attention to things, you feel a little better the next day. The minute you start working out and you have a drink or two the night before, and you got to be up at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. to work out, you're struggling, and you start to realize like these one or two things that you're doing create a very either a good momentum, a wave of success, or it's a wall that you're hitting that could be very challenging. And I think those are definitely interesting dynamics. So how are your friends? Okay, this is the best indication. So you said your best friend just doesn't, he's not doing it, but you've got other friends that have gone the 90 days and gone on the journey with you.
Yeah, I gotta quote him, I love it. He's like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm sure I'd feel better, blah, blah, blah. I'd feel better, I'd screw better, have more muscle. But I ain't effing doing it," you know? It's kinda he's just kind of a diehard buddy that I've known since kindergarten. But yeah, no, and it's not just my friends, I have clients, and so, yeah, it you know, the guys that do it lot very similar epiphanies in playbooks, and like I said, probably about 70% of them will still drink, but they just drink way less. And so, yeah, it's kind of like a way to really figure it out. I kind of see it like if you're not taking a 3+ month break, you're really not given a decision around your drinking, because like I said, people think they're making decisions around their drinking. I'm drinking less. Well, I'm only drinking wine. I'm not drinking bourbon. I'm only drinking on the weekends. I only drink when I'm out with my friend. Like, there's all these like exceptions, or I do dry January every year. I take creatine powder, whatever the hell they tell themselves. You're not giving yourself a choice with your alcohol use if you don't ever stop drinking it, for at least 3 months, because just your brain, you're stuck in so many subconscious feedback, negative feedback loops that, yeah, you're not driving a car, maybe you're sitting shotgun, but you're not driving a car. And so it's really just a gift and a ability to, you know, kind of figure out what's really going on. It's a little bit of a ghost in the machine thing that's going on here. And without the break and without the epiphanies and without the wins, again, you're setting yourself up for a bunch of negative things. But a lot of, everybody's stoked on it. It's like I said, it's not necessarily about what you do after, but it's just kind of like you got to do your vacation. You got to like, figure out how to roll with it. And so when you need to pull it back out for whatever reason, it's 10 times easier. You get a lot of props. And again, it's like in your 20s and 30s, your buddies are going to give you a lot of shit. In your 40s and 50s, like your buddies are like, cool. Like that's like, so they're going to be taking you aside going, how the hell did you do that? Cause like, that's just a reality. Like every guy, we like to play dumb with it, but every guy knows like there's a price to be paid. And yeah, like I said, and I think and I'm sure you see this a lot as well, Scott, with your charter, but it's kind of a crying shame when you got these guys that have everything on paper. They have the memberships, they have the beautiful house, beautiful family, great cars, great neighborhoods. And it's like you peel back the curtain and it's like CPAP machines, belly fat, can't golf anymore because they hurt their back or shoulder. It's just like they're falling apart. And like, and they're, again, trying to have some fun with, kind of with the booze and stuff. And it's fine, but like it's just over time it's pretty taxing and it's not as much fun. And so I think when you have it, you wanna update the system and hopefully enjoy it. And that takes a little bit of adulting here and there, unfortunately, but it's worth it.
So you took 6 months straight off to go ride 10-foot waves in Nicaragua, and was it successful? Did you feel like
Oh
it
yeah.
made you?
Oh yeah. No, because it's like, yeah, because I'm out of I'm landlocked now, but I was a I had it I think I'd surfed like 3-foot waves like 6 months before that. Is just kinda how it worked out. But yeah, I was full on third world country. My buddies were way more experienced, and yeah, it was killer. I got some great shots. We survived, had a good time, and I wasn't like sleeping with one eye open, worried about, getting my ass handed to me because yeah, when you wanna look and feel your best and, mentally and physically, you gotta dial in the sleep and diet and fitness, and that's what I was able to do. And so it's a big deal. And ultimately, yeah, like I said, it was worth it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you surfed the big waves. Where in Nicaragua did you end up going? Do you remember?
No, no, it
Uh,
was Playa Grande was one of the spots, but it wasn't the main spot, but yeah, actually one of the owner of the resort was from Santa Cruz where we'd surfed and
Okay.
gone to UCSC, so it was cool. It was a good
I
time. But yeah, it
I have a
was
good buddy who surfs, and spent years in Nicaragua, and so, he's a big surfer, big fan of Nicaragua, loves the break out there, and,
yeah, we had a
has been
ball.
talking about it for years, and so, um, it definitely there's a lot of things you could do in life if you have a clear head and a g you know, and all of it together with you so that you're not having to, dilute any of that, living.
Yeah, and like, again, I think back to myself in high school, like, if I thought like, "Oh, I can still perform and still do this, in my 50s," like, that's stinking cool, like, I would sack up and, do some awkward things to get there, and so that's ultimately what it's about, and, yeah, hopefully keeping that going for as long as humanly possible.
Yeah, well, you're coaching people now and you're walking people through this. How do people get a hold of you? And what are ways? What does it look like to work with you as a consultant and a coach to walk men through better health and performance and a booze vacation?
Yeah, check out boozevacation.com, and there'll be a pop-up for the men's health assessment quiz, or you can go to boozevacation.com/quiz, but start with the 3-minute quiz, see where you rank. We kinda look at some of these key things. We kinda walk you through our methodology. But, yeah, we're not looking to slam anybody into doing something they don't wanna do, but it's great to start with kind of just brass tacks, take stock, where are you at, how are things going, what warning signs are there? A lot of guys will kind of blow them off. That's normal. That's just aging. And we want to kind of like just say where these things are headed, figure out where you want to be. And yeah, just kind of have an overall kind of and you can book a 20-minute free conversation and we can just kind of discuss what you have, ask any questions, say like, hey, this doesn't seem right, whatever. But just kind of start having that conversation. That's ultimately what this is about. Like the guys don't really necessarily, they're not always straight up with their doctors. And so we're just trying to have a peer-to-peer conversation around how's your health? And if we can dial this in, you're gonna have a lot better performance. You're gonna have a lot more, opportunities to and flexibility to live the life you want. But yeah, just kind of get clear on where you're at. But like I said, a lot of guys are leaving a lot of money on the table. They are kind of, they're ignoring some pretty significant warning signs. And yeah, we want to encourage them to take the right action. We have a ton of free resources if guys want to do it. But yeah, it can be a little tricky to navigate it. And so, as far as somebody wanting to work with me, we want to kind of come up with a good game plan, help them pack their bags. It's not like they're going to leave the next day immediately, but like might plan it around an event. We might kind of get their blood work done. We might want to get them an aura ring or something like that. Just kind of start being intentional and yeah, even putting down your credit card is pretty important like indicator that like, hey, I'm doing something to take my health seriously. You're starting to send these signals because yeah, at the end of the day, doing what we're doing isn't hard, but it's pretty tricky to pull off because you have all of your habits that you kind of have to overcome. You have this taking a break from alcohol, which can be a little, kind of off putting when it's kind of part of your identity and your operating system. And so we just want to make sure you kind of have a good solid game plan. You know what to say when your buddies are giving you crap and you have some good beer, some good NA beers, handy. So we just want to we just want to make it easy and get you results quickly. So you're walking into a party 2, 3 weeks later and people are like, whoa, what happened? Like your face is changing. Like you have like a jawline now and you don't have those jaws anymore and your eyes are clearer. Like, what happened? Like, oh yeah, no, I lost 8 pounds. I'm 2 weeks on my booze vacation. And it's not about like, you know, pushing it on them, but it's like, you have a little bit of plausibility there because you're not the asshole doing it. It's like booze vacation. So point them to us. We'll be the asshole on your behalf. But it's really about, kind of giving guys the ground cover and the support they need to customize whatever it is they're dealing with, whether it's, oftentimes it's sleep and diet are two things, and that's going to really inform, kind of the fitness and addressing kind of nagging aches and pains, and we're going to be knocking down the inflammation, and so just being smart about how we, start approaching things and not go, too crazy too quickly. But yeah, I mean, we can give. I mean, some of our testimonials are ridiculous. I've worked with one of the biggest private wealth planners in Silicon Valley. He lost like 60 pounds. He got off all his blood work medication. His performance is through the roof. And, and he wasn't even drinking that much. Like he was a big, high end bourbon guy, but wasn't drinking that much. But it's amazing. Like I said, as you get older, it takes less and less alcohol to dysregulate these key systems of health. And so we can get some really compelling results, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a hell of a network too. Because yeah, the VCs, commercial developers, financial planners, like guys are crushing it. And then it's like as they're more actualized, yeah, it's like, hey, let's go on actual trips. Let's go invest in this property because I have more time and space in to kind of you know and you're not giving your money to your doctor and surgeon, so you're buying your own beach house, not one for them. So there's a lot of cool things that unlocks.
Awesome. Well, Clifford, it's been great hearing your story. Definitely check out boozvacation.com and look at ways for the man in your life or men for you guys just to get back on the train and get to maximum performance and kick all the other things out that are holding you back. I think that's the message here. And Clifford, it's always good to have these conversations. So thanks a lot for being a part of it with me today.
Scott, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I think we align on a lot of these big picture things, and it's important to get these things right. And yeah, sometimes it's a little awkward to take on some of these things, but it's important, it's meaningful, and it's a big deal.
Awesome, man. Thanks again. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you liked it, there's more where this one came from. Click here and enjoy some more.